I'm Claire Dooley, you're watching CHG TV, and welcome to the Geoengineering Report, where we identify the threat in the skies. We are just now beginning to understand the dangers of toxic, invasive microplastics and nanoparticles now found in the internal organs of much of the population. In some regards, it is all we can do to avoid products and ingredients that contain these harmful substances to mitigate the danger. But what if we are exposed to microplastics in the very air that we breathe? Our expert explains this possibility.
First of all, explain to the viewer exactly what a microplastic is.
It's an unimaginably small particle of polymer or plastic. And to put this into perspective, up to 100,000 nanoparticles can fit across the width of a single human hair. We're talking about nanoparticle plastic. Although we do have plastic decomposition everywhere in the environment, we know that, we recognize that, we acknowledge that at geoengineeringwatch.org. When we have particles showing up in precipitation tests that appear to be manufactured particles that match what's named in climate engineering patents, why would we think this is not a part of the mix? I personally have been in a wilderness area in the Shasta County region of Northern California after one of these nucleated snow events in a very remote area in a sandbar in a mountain stream with melting snow pouring into it, and the sediment on that sandbar was blue. That's certainly not nature. What's that doing in our streams? And again, I had in that particular circumstance no means of collecting a sample with proper protocols. I didn't have, of course, I wasn't trekking there with a lab vial with me, but this has been reported from major media around the country, this various colored frozen material that people have noted and seen. Again, it's in our precipitation. We know that. If it's in our precipitation, from lab tests have proven that. It's in our air, which means we're breathing it. And the amount of data now is showing up to show that nanoplastic particles are showing up in hearts, lungs, placentia, everything across the board, including our brains. If that doesn't concern people, it should.
Right, so these nanoparticles, are they added to the spray that's coming down? And if they are, how are they doing that?
Patents say yes. In fact, they call for dispersions of the nanoparticles of polymer particles are named specifically as a means of keeping the other heavy metal particles aloft longer, specifically stated by the world's most recognized climate engineers like Dr. David Keith. And he has stated on film on the record that the use of these polymers is to mimic what spiders do, spiders that weave webs, because these polymers mimic that to a degree, and they are able to stay aloft, these certain types of spiders, and they're trying to mimic that process by using polymer fibers and dispersion out the back of aircraft along with the heavy metals, the combination of the two in the attempt to keep these metals aloft longer in the atmosphere. And the metals, again, being used as part of what's called solar radiation management, stratospheric aerosol injection, cloud albedo enhancement. These are science terms for the stated purpose of trying to block some of the sun's incoming thermal energy for the stated purpose of slowing the warming of the planet. All available data now indicates that all of these processes that we know have been going on for decades are not only not mitigating the rapid warming of the planet, they are making it worse overall. And I want to stress that. So we have the weather whiplash we talked about before, these flash surface cool downs, which climate engineering can and is creating. But that comes at the cost of a worsened overall warming of the planet because it's destroying the ozone layer, which we touched on. That's why we have the intense UV radiation. It's trapping more heat overall than it deflects, and it's contaminating virtually everything on planet Earth, including every breath we take.
For the people that say, well, that don't care, because there are people that don't, but they love animals. Let's talk about that for a second. Don't think your animals are safe from this. This is in the air, so it'll be affecting them as well.
Absolutely. Everything that lives and breathes. We had data from Norwegian researchers that were trying to quantify how much aluminum, nanoparticulate matter, their bovine, their cows, were ingesting, their so-called organic cows, over the course of a year. And it was profoundly high amounts of metal being ingested through their feed. So we're talking about bioavailable elements. When elements are this small, and again, it's inconceivably small, 100,000 nanoparticles across the width of a single human hair, they're absorbed into everything we eat, drink, breathe. And now, of course, we're having some acknowledgement of that because they can't hide it. It's not that the power structure wants to tell us the truth. Some of these factors are so profoundly advanced at this point that they can't hide the truth any longer. And now that's showing up, that these particles are everywhere in all of us.
Now, what about food? They're talking about food shortages. They do that every year, but they're drumming it back up again now. Do you think that this unpredictable weather is affecting our food? It's kind of a stupid question, of course it is, but yes, let's do it.
Absolutely. And by design in so many cases. And when we have, again, the systematic targeting, in the case of California, one of the presentations I did a decade ago, Engineered Drought Catastrophe, Target California, and everything I stated in that, and that presentation is still available, although YouTube has taken down some channel postings of that. It's still available online, and everything I stated then has happened because we were operating off of data, that if these programs continued, and they have, that the result would be inevitable of the toxification of soils, waters, the cutting off of moisture for crops, and the heat here in California, for example. And this is also a key part of the equation. Paul, your listeners may have heard the term high pressure heat dome a lot more of late. They use that term all the time now. And that's an ionosphere heater induced high pressure heat dome. And this technology is not disputed scientifically. HARP is one example of an ionosphere heater, HARP in Alaska, causes an electrical chain reaction in the ionosphere by transmitting 3.6 million watts of power there. And it heats the upper layers of the atmosphere to extraordinarily high temperatures, causes the atmosphere to expand up and down. The downward push is a high pressure heat dome. Why would they do this? It helps to steer upper level wind currents, which then steers moisture currents, which they can chemically nucleate and cool down certain regions. But underneath that high pressure heat dome, as we've been in the West for so many months, you have extraordinarily hot temperatures, 115 degrees plus in the Central Valley of California, where the food was grown. Photosynthesis stops. Back to your food question. Photosynthesis stops at 104 degrees. It tapers down radically before that, far before that. And when nighttime temperatures are not cooling off, and they really can't cool off much under a high pressure heat dome because the air is being pushed downward, that heat can't rise and escape, if that makes sense. So we have a shutting down of photosynthesis. We have heat that also restricts any plant growth. We have crops crashing, and we have now warnings of that coming from mainstream media. Expect empty food shelves. So all of this is a way of covertly controlling populations and blaming it on nature.
At CHD TV, we love to hear from you. So please send us pictures or reach out to us with any questions you have for Dane to goodmorning@CHD-TV. Thank you so much for watching the Geoengineering Report. We'll see you next time on CHD TV.